Alright, hello. Look at me, I'm all set up. I've got my microphone, so I'm getting use out of it. This time I am recording on my mic using voice memos on my computer, and then I'm going to lay that over my phone video. So hopefully that works out. We have my headphones that are supposed to do something. They're like important you wear, but I don't really understand why. And you know, because the whole look, I have like the beanie on with the headphones, which match my sweatshirt, and like I'm here and I'm ready to talk about books. So I read 4 books this month, or listened to 2, read 2 in person. And we're gonna go like in order this time. So the first book I listened to was One to Watch, which is a romance that kind of spoofs off the Bachelor/Bachelorette, the overall franchise. The main kind of premise here is that this woman, she is a plus-size fashion/lifestyle blogger. She publicly criticizes the show for its lack of diversity, particularly body size, but also like ethnicity, race, LGBTQIA plus people, and it really blows up online. Around this time, the show is also suffering a major ratings drop, and they decide to change showrunners. The new showrunner they bring in makes a couple changes, including making the shows run so it's more like a Love Island setup, where they are taping, editing, and broadcasting the show in a almost like close to real life schedule with minimal delay. And then the second big change she does is she headhunts or like scouts B to be the new lead on the show. B decides, you know, to say yes, and we follow her through her journey on the show. I really enjoyed that the chapters were broken up with like each like episode. It would be like 4 men left, etc. till you got to the end. I really loved so much about this book. It was sprinkled with tons of like Bachelorette references that, like, as a huge fan of the show, made me just like love this book so much. I felt like I was in on the joke. It was like I was like, oh my god, like yeah, that's so true. Like these tropes it would pick up on, these conventions that they played with. I was just like eating it up. It was, like an interesting romance story overall. It took some unexpected turns. It definitely like caught me unawares at times. And I do think it was like unconventional to like your average romance. And then this, like, there's some stuff about it that was just like so timely. I like can't think of the word. It's like serendipitous, almost like predictive storytelling. So I already said how like the show got called out for lack of diversity, and then B got scouted. And this book came out in 2019, and that is like 1 year later. Look what happened to The Bachelor in 2020. They got called out for lack of diversity, and then they scouted Matt James. I mean, granted, he was already in like the pool of people to compete on Claire's season, but he was pulled out as like very much breaking the pattern of a previous contestant. They like decided to just like pick him and put him on. That was like very predictive. And then this is like, okay, so like spoiler time. The other thing that was like so amazingly predictive was like one of her like top 3 dudes, I think his name was Sam, he got chosen to be the first Black Bachelor ever on the show. And then here we are a year later having our first Black Bachelor. Amazing! So just like things like that made me like just the timeliness of it, and when I happened to be listening to it was like shortly, or it was like right at around the start of Matt's season, and it just blew me away. I was just like, what? So probably should more so like on average objective, I would be like more like a 4-star book, but like I just loved it so much personally because of my history with the show. Like if you love The Bachelor and Bachelorette, I highly recommend this book. Do like listen to it, watch it. It's great. There you go. So I will move on now to the next book I read. I have it right here. I read None Shall Sleep. The description of this, I'll just like read this little thing that's on the back. It says, a YA, Silence of the Lambs. I absolutely loved this book as well. Guess what? I also gave this book 5 stars. It is a YA book, but it didn't read, like, super teenagery. The characters were, like, young adults dealing with, like, adult things. Oh, it takes place in 1982 as well, which I kept forgetting while I was reading it. And then, like, something really weird would happen, like, they wouldn't be able to call someone, or, like, they would be like, oh, we can't get a hold of them because, like, cell phones aren't around yet, and I would just be like, right, this is 1982. So, it's about 2 teenagers. Serial killer survivor Emma Lewis and U.S. Marshal candidate Travis Bell are recruited by the FBI to interview convicted juvenile killers and provide insight on cold cases. They begin interviewing this teenage sociopath, Simon Gutmanson, and he, like, had some information on a active case, and they get involved, and it's, like, you know, it's just, like, a great crime novel. It's, like, action, thriller, mystery, like, everything I, like, could want in a book like this. Just, like, done perfectly. Absolute page-turner, easy to read, like, enthralling. I was just, like, had to keep reading, couldn't put it down, until, like, I sort of, like, needed to, because it was, like, I need to go to sleep because I have work the next day. I read it during lunch the next day, and then I, like, finished it the next evening, because I couldn't wait to get it done. It was so good. If you've watched Mindhunter on Netflix, and also if you've watched Criminal Minds, they are working with the BSU. Obviously, I think everyone is, like, very aware with Criminal Minds. First comes to mind with the Behavioral Science Unit. However, it takes place in 1982, like I said, which is, like, really, like, shortly after Mindhunter is taking place. So when they're talking about how they're sending them to interview juvenile criminals that were convicted, it's, like, very similar to, like, the premise of Mindhunter with what they're doing. It's, like, the next step. They've already established this interview system with convicted felons that are serial killers, but it's still, like, overall, like, a kind of a new concept, but they're still dealing with this being, like, a somewhat new field, and they're still doing research, and times are changing as, like, how they're doing casework and things. So it's, like, right after that. It's, like, Mindhunter chronologically, then, like, this book just happens to kind of, like, fall in there perfectly, and then, like, later on you get, like, Criminal Minds in practice. Applying the science. My only criticism of this book is that they, like, make a big deal out of it somewhat. It's just, like, mentioned multiple times as, like, a prime feature of Simon, the one teenage sociopath they work with. And I believe he's on the cover here. But, like, and I kind of see how the artist handled it. I'm like, I guess it's fine. But they say, like, multiple times how one of his, like, most defining features is, like, his naturally white blonde hair and his very dark brows. And I'm just like, where does that occur in nature? How does that make sense? So, that aside, wonderful book. I gave it 5 stars. Absolutely recommend. Alright, so the next book I'm going to talk about is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. So, I have a lot of feelings about this book, and I actually just finished it last night. And I 100% see why it is a 5-star book for so many people. I get a little frustrated thinking about this, because it's like, it's a 4-star book for me. But I want it to be a 5-star book so bad. And it sounds like it's like, I feel so stupid, like, criticizing it, but it's like, please take the fact that it's like, the way I'm criticizing, it's, like, extremely personal to me. Like, this is what I realize I don't like about this book, but, like, I think it is objectively, like, I generally think it's, like, such a good book that so many people will love, and that, like, I would highly recommend. I think, like, the problem with this book almost is that, like, it does too much too well. Like, there's so many great, wonderful things about it that, like, the slightest thing that didn't jive with exactly what, like, my personal preferences, like, became such a, like, glaring issue for me, almost, because everything else was, like, so good and perfect. It's majorly a book. It's, like, a romance. You have, like, a teen romance, and then you have a, like, mystical kind of mystery happening. And if you, like, came to me, you know, you said, like, Tatiana, this book has 2 things you love, and put them together in one book, wouldn't that just be amazing and perfect? And I would say, like, yes, let me read that book, because it sounds amazing and perfect. And, like, it is amazing and perfect, but, okay, let me try and give you the premise. Our main character, Yadriel, he is a trans boy growing up in the Bruex community. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing everything quite right. I am trying, I promise, but there's a lot of Spanish in this book, and I don't speak Spanish well, but I'm trying. And that's one of the things that it was good about listening to an audiobook, otherwise I would have, like, no idea how to say these things. But he wants to be a brujo, that is the male role in the Bruex community. However, his family members, or the majority of his family members, do not see that as possible. So he has not been allowed to have his magical ceremony, his quince, to become a full brujo and be recognized. So he decides to do it on his own with his friend, and I can never remember her name. She made him a special dagger that has mystical abilities. They do his quince ceremony, and he is blessed by Lady Death with the brujo magic. His cousin, Miguel, goes missing, and everyone's looking for him because it's like they think he's died. And while they're looking for signs of Miguel and what happened to him, they ended up summoning another spirit who happened to go to school with them, and his name is Julian. And throughout the story, you know, we have, like, kind of a romance between Yadriel and Julian, and also we're trying to solve the mystery of what happened to his cousin and Julian, who happened to die on the same night. And, like, here's the thing for me. The book starts very much with, like, this kind of mystery premise, right? And it sets up the stakes and urgency, and you're very compelled, you're pulled in, and then it kind of turns into a romance. This lovely, budding romance between Yadriel and Julian, and I really like their relationship. Don't get me wrong, I like their relationship, and I like the fact that, like, it somehow manages to be, like, light, despite the fact that, like, Julian is dead, he's a ghost. It's like this, you know, it's like totally tragic because he's a ghost, they can never be together, but it isn't like this angst filled, you know, it doesn't have the melodrama, the romance doesn't have the melodrama to it, which I appreciate. I think that's nice. I think that's a good example of, like, a relationship for young people, that doesn't have to be all, like, drama and negative, you know. Like Kelly told Peter on The Bachelor. It's like they're having fun together, they find solace and comfort with each other, and they, like, respect each other, and there's wonderful, complex characters, and, like, however, this is the thing that bothered me, is we'd be having this, like, romance, and the whole time, or not the whole time, I would get sucked into it sometimes, but a lot, and I would just be like, but what about Miguel? What about Julian's body? Like, we're trying to find his body, and, like, your cousin who's been, like, murdered. Like, it's a good, compelling mystery that was set up. That was ultimately what was, like, calling me above, like, the romance, and I felt like they weren't, like, taking it seriously enough, like, the investigation portion. If there was just, like, a couple more plot movement moments interspersed with the romance, if the characters had, like, critical thinking moments, and maybe, like, a revelation about, you know, what was happening, like, I would have loved that, but no one had, like, an aha moment where that, like, furthered the plot. It was just like, oh, like, we're gonna try something, everything low-key fails, and then they just, like, happen upon the, like, resolution through none of their own, like, mental deduction or anything. But meanwhile, us as the, like, readers, we are getting some clues to, like, figure it out by the end. I was like, oh my god, I know who it is, I know why he's done it, there's, like, coincidences, there's, like, very obviously line up, but they are just, like, not even thinking. They're just, like, mind empty, no thoughts, about the mystery. They're just, like, falling in love, which is, like, very cute, and I really like them falling in love, but that's the reason this is a 4-star book for me. Alright, I'm going to put the beanie back on because I'm feeling self-conscious about my hair. I'm sorry. But, yeah, so then this is where I'm going to talk about, like, the spoiler moment. So the thing that, like, kind of gave the plot away, like, 3/4 of the way through the book or whatever, I'm not entirely sure, but we just found out how, like, yeah, Julian was the 3rd person to randomly disappear mysteriously, and they're like, wow, Miguel plus Julian plus 2 more people randomly disappeared. And then we move to the scene where we get Lita being like, yeah, I can't find these sacrificial knives anywhere that require 4 sacrifices. And, like, I'm just like, oh my god, those knives, it's the knives. Whoever has the knives, they're doing the sacrifices. They're trying to raise, what's his name? So that was just, like, really frustrating for me as, like, a viewer. Like, I wanted Yadriel and Julian to have these revelations with me and investigate accordingly. But the characters are wonderful and great, and, like, the romance is really, really good. So I recommend checking it out. Long story short. So the last book I read, not so much a book, but like, ooh, comics. So the reason I haven't been reading as many books the last couple months is partially because I've been watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the first time. And I finished all of the 7 seasons about midway through January, I want to say. And I was just, doing kind of, my post-show kind of, look up. I try not to Google the show too much before I start watching it in case I come across, spoilers, since it's a show that's been out for forever and is very well known and popular. And I was like, oh my god, there's a comic series of it that's, written by Joss Whedon. And they look very cool and beautiful, and I decided to order Season 8, Volume 1. I believe there are 4 volumes in Season 8. And I read it in, like, 1.5 hours, 2 hours last night. Obviously it's a comic book, so there's lots of pictures. It's beautiful. Like, I really like the artwork in it. I like, I mean, what is there, like, not to like? If you like Buffy, like, you could like this. It's the same author, so, like, the characters are, like, very faithful adaptations. Like, the humor matches. It all lines up. The artwork is, like, so good. It's so good. This is one of, we have these kind of matching covers throughout at the beginning of each one, but when I was, like, looking into the comics a little bit at first, I saw that, like, oh, it looked like they all had, like, different, like, guest artists do the covers, and I was like, oh, I really hope those are in the volumes, because that's, like, something very cool that I'd be interested in. And it didn't look like they were in here until I saw in the back they actually had the different cover arts for the individual comics that, like, weren't, like, the, like, matching series-y ones that are throughout the actual, like, comic portion of the book. So yeah, I really liked it. It was, like, on the pricier side. I'm not familiar with comics or comic collecting or, like, exactly what standard prices are or anything, but it was, like, $30 for this book. Oh, and some of them I saw were, like, different prices. So, like, I don't know if different volumes have, like, different value or something, but if I just base it off the price of this one, which was $30, and then multiplied that by 4, it'd be like $120 for, like, I don't know, 6 hours, like 6 hours of entertainment, maybe. So anyways, I did really enjoy it, but I think I'll like maybe buy these every once in a while. I do want to buy all of Season 8, and then maybe depending on how I feel about, like, the conclusion of the overall arc, because, I'm only getting, like, a quarter way in. I would consider like continuing. What like beautiful art. There's just so much beautiful like artwork in here as well that like I really like. So yeah, I guess that, you know, like concludes my wrap up, my January wrap up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe if you did, maybe, you know, hit that like button, leave a comment. Oh wait, I had an idea for comments, like what to leave in the comments. And now I don't remember. Shoot, I had an engagement plan and now I don't remember it. I don't know if you read any of these books and had any opinions on it. Please let me know your thoughts. Yeah. Alright. Yeah, so thanks for watching and I will talk to you later. Bye!